Welcome. In this video, you will learn how to create an upcycled tote bag using t-shirts. If you haven't already, you'll start by cutting off the hem, then you'll cut the sleeves off at the seams. Draw in the bag opening by tracing a template or drawing a curve in freehand, then cut on the line. You will want to make sure that the opening is wide enough to cut the rib around the neckline off. Make a mark every 1.5 inches across the bottom of the shirt, then draw a line 3 inches up from each mark. Cut on each line to make the ties. For the ties on the outside of the t-shirt, cut on the fold. Repeat these steps to cut the second t-shirt. Next, you'll place one of the t-shirts inside the other with right sides together. You'll need to decide if you want to leave the t-shirt design showing on the outside of the bag or hide it on the inside. Use a serger or a sewing machine to stitch around the bag opening. If you don't have a serger or sewing machine, the lacing technique used on the handles will work for finishing. Next, we'll start tying the bottom of the bag. To start tying, you'll take one green strip and one white strip from opposite sides of the bag and tie a knot. Next, you'll take a white strip from the top and a green strip from the bottom and tie another knot. This should start closing up the bottom of the bag. You'll alternate the colors of the strips as you go across to prevent leaving big holes. For the lacing steps, you'll make a mark around the edges of the handles 3/8 of an inch from the edge and 1/2 inch apart. Use a pair of scissors to cut on each mark through both t-shirt layers. You want to cut these holes pretty small. They can always be cut larger later. Now you'll cut 4 strips of fabric 1¼ inch by the width of the t-shirt for lacing. Pull each strip to roll the edges in and tie a knot towards the end of 2 of the strands. To start the lacing step, you'll place the knot between the outside and the lining of the bag. One of the strands will be fed through the hole on the outside of the bag. The other strand will be fed through the hole on the lining. Now take your outside strip and carry it over the edge of the bag and feed it through the next hole through both layers of fabric. Next, take your second strip and bring it from the lining over the cut edge of the bag and through the same hole that you just used. This strip should cross over your previous strip. You'll repeat these steps all the way around the outside of the handle until you reach the point where you started. To make it easier to feed the strips through the holes, fold the fabric over a pencil and stick it through the hole. To end the lacing, you'll stick your strips through the first hole you started with, but only feeding it through one layer. Pull the tail out from between the 2 layers and tie a knot. Push the knot between the 2 layers of fabric to hide it. If you'd like to pad the handles of the bag with your leftover scraps of fabric, do this before the bag is completely closed, or you can use the scraps to make 3D trapunto designs. To start padding the handle, make marks across the width of the handle where you're going to make your cuts for lacing. These should be about 1/2 inch apart. Take any leftover strips of fabric and use this to feed through the holes on the strap. Use the same steps to complete this line of stitching that you used for the lacing. Instead of crossing the strand of fabric over the edge of the bag, you'll just move to the next hole. When you're finished, stuff the t-shirt strands between the 2 layers of the bag. Tie a knot and trim the strands down. Stuff any t-shirt scraps that you have inside the handles. Make another row of stitching on the other side of the handle to keep the stuffing inside the bag. To make 3D designs using a trapunto technique, draw a shape on the bag. Make marks 1/2 inch apart and cut holes through both layers. Following the same process we used for stuffing the handles, stitch around the shape, leaving about a 2-inch hole. Cut up any leftover scraps of t-shirt, like the hem or the rib around the neckline, to make the stuffing. Add your leftover stuffing scraps and finish stitching the rest of the shape. Add confetti t-shirt strips by looping a strip of fabric underneath the stitching and making a hitch knot. Do this all the way around the shape, alternating colors. Now you've got a completed upcycled t-shirt tote bag.